let's say for my pre-seed, right, I raised $1 million at a $10 million valuation, right?
That means 1 million is gonna get me 10% of your company.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So now, because I raised at a $10 million valuation from an institutional investor, because I've given you a 20% discount when you came in with a safe agreement, that means that you're going to get $8 million valuation. So what that means is that you get more shares because you came in early.
I'm borrowing money from friends and family.
Okay.
All right. I collect a pot. I tell people, hey, this is my idea. I've got a business, and I need some money. Friends and family, they come together. Maybe it's just one family or it's a bunch of friends and family, whatever it is, but they help support that vision and put the money in your account, and then you use that money to run your business. That's one example.
Well, yeah, that's one example of borrowing the money. Let's just hope that you can pay it back. What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Grind.
BTG.
Hey, if this is your first time tuning in, thank you so much for tuning in. And please don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of our future content. Our podcast is about business and lifestyle. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. My name is Kay.
My name is Alan.
And I'm Tosin. And today we're going to be talking about different ways that you can finance your business.
Oh, there's a lot of different ways.
There are a lot of different ways.
Cool.
Are there a lot of different ways? Well, let's go through it and we'll see.
Okay.
Right. One example that I'm going to throw out there, let's just make it easy, is that I'm borrowing money from friends and family.
Okay.
All right. I collect a pot. I tell people, hey, this is my idea. I've got a business, and I need some money. Friends and family, they come together. Maybe it's just one family or it's a bunch of friends and family, whatever it is, but they help support that vision and put the money in your account, and then you use that money to run your business. That's one example.
Well, yeah, that's one example of borrowing the money. Let's just hope that you can pay it back.
I only said finance your business. I didn't say pay back the financing.
Okay. So they're donating to your business.
Donations too.
Okay.
Right?
Another way
Actually, grants, like you mentioned with donation.
Yes.
There are grants for certain types of businesses and certain types of activities within a business that you can qualify for.
Yes.
Federal grants, local grants, private grants, which, maybe if you know a nonprofit that's doing some kind of program, they'll have grants for maybe a certain, if you're a female or male or a disabled veteran or all kinds of different categories.
Right.
They might have some grants that you can use to be able to finance your business.
Yes. And you're right. And speaking of family and friends, there's also in the startup world, there's something that they call a safe, so you can raise what you call a safe. So safe basically is a simple agreement for future equity. So what that means is that you are in the initial stage of your business, or you're not necessarily generating the type of traction, and you don't have the type of matrix that an angel investor or a venture capitalist would look for. So you can't necessarily go to them. So which in this case, you would go to your family and friends. And at that point, they're investing in more likely you versus what you've been able to accomplish in your business, right? So that's also another way. And one thing I always tell people is that before you do that, you need to understand, okay, what type of safe do I want to raise, right? So there are 3 types of safe, right? You have the discounts valuation safe, right? And basically what that means is that if you want to invest in my business, right, I'm going to give you, let's say I'll give you a 20% discount. That discount would apply to whenever I have a real valuation and I want to raise a price round for my business. So to give an example.
Yeah, I was going to ask for one.
So let's say for my pre-seed, right, I raised $10 million, right? I'm sorry, I raised $1 million at a $10 million valuation. Right.
That means 1 million is going to get me 10% of your company.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So now, because I raised at a $10 million valuation, right, from an institutional investor, because I've given you a 20% discount when you came in with a safe agreement, that means that you're going to get $8 million valuation. So what that means is that you get more shares because you came in early, if that makes sense, right?
That's correct.
So there was an incentive for you to invest because, you know, you don't necessarily know what the valuation is going to be, but I've promised you that, hey, once I do have a valuation, whatever that valuation looks like,
You'll get a 20%.
you'll get a 20% discount. So that's one safe. Another safe is the valuation cap. So what does that mean? That means that, you know, so some folks, when they raise their safe, before they raise their price round, they might wait forever. They might wait until they're worth like 20, 30, 40, 50 million. And for you, your money is already gone and you're waiting 2, 3, 4 years. Imagine what you could have done with that money, right? So what some founders, they would do is they would say, hey, if you invest in my company, I will make sure that, you know, the valuation max that you're going to get is 3 mil. So that means when I go to Alan as an institutional investor and Alan has determined that my valuation is 20 million, you're good because I've already have an agreement with you that no matter what, 3 mil is the right. So the lesser the valuation, the more shares you have, right? And then the last one, which is my favorite, is the MFN. So MFN basically means most favored nation. So most favored nation basically means that I'm not giving a valuation cap. I'm not giving a valuation discount. You're just taking the exact valuation that I would give an institutional investor during a price round. Does that make sense? Now, somebody might say, well, why would I want to do that if I'm not getting any discount or any valuation cap, right? One thing I always tell people is that for that price round, typically you would have a minimum requirement to invest. It could be 25, it could be 50 or 100,000. The good news for you is that when I took that money from you, even though I didn't give you any valuation cap or I didn't give you any discounts, I only took 5,000 from you. That 5,000, you would have not had the opportunity to invest
in anywhere
during
else.
a price round. So that's also another way that you can get money during the
Now
initial
we
stage.
went technical really quick because it's K.
Yeah, he gave y'all
but
a lot.
Two
Some
things
homework.
I want to jump in and add to that is that one, a safe is not a debt. All right. It's just pretty
Yeah.
much a donation until it turns into equity.
Yes.
However, there's another type where we call convertible notes.
Yes.
Right.
All right. Do you want to talk about that, or Alan? You want to take that?
I'll let him
So
take it. I don't want
He's on a roll.
He's on a roll, right?
So the convertible note is easy because at that point you have a valuation, right? So when I mention a price round basically means that you're raising a pre-seed. A company has done valuation on you, and they're saying that this is what you're worth.
Right.
And at that point, I'm taking the 5,000 or whatever amount that you've given me, right? And I'm taking a valuation that have been assigned to my company, and I'm converting that to equity, right? So at that point, rather than you having a signed agreement, you're now being issued a share certificate to say that you own X percentage of my company. And that's essentially what it is in plain English.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but I know there are other, like, people,
mean-
it's not just through safe.
No.
You can also go golfing with your golf buddies. As we're dressed up like we're going
See,
golfing.
you're dressed for it, right?
It's just, hey, slide me a couple of hundred. I got you.
But diving back to it. When you started your practice, right? How did you finance the start of your practice? What did you do?
I'm going to keep it pretty short here. But I had issues securing funding, and, it's neither here nor there. So I shopped around in that. Had nothing to do with my credit.
What type of funding were you looking for?
I was looking for a loan. For dentists, we usually get a 100% zero down loan. And
Wait, hold on. That was a lot.
That's 100%
zero
funding.
down loan.
Right.
What does that
Tell me
100%
more.
funding. You're paying no down payment.
So
Just
that
giving you the
means
money.
I don't need to put in my own money to be
Correct.
able to down payment, no down payment.
Correct. Because dentists our businesses typically are less likely to fail. So, and it's backed by the assets. They can always take by the, the equipment. Since we're equipment heavy, they can take that back. So they can get some of their value back. It's like a house, but that generates income, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they have an asset. It has an asset that they're actually getting out of
As
it.
it's a collateral.
Exactly. And as it's also generating revenue. So, but I had a firsthand experience of a little bit of that, what's the word? I don't know the terminology. A little bit of biases on lending to me. And
You feel like they were biased?
Oh, 100%. And I didn't even know. My other, friends or colleagues that didn't look like me had a worse credit profile and got a better rate. And I was getting a usurious rate. And I was like, they sent me their information. I was like, look, you guys did not give me this amount. And when you did, you gave it to me at a high amount. Why? Oh, you don't have? I was like, incorrect. My credit score is 820. His credit score is 660. Why is their rate lower than mine? And I pretty much shopped around. To make a long story short,
okay.
I got that to match the rate he got. Then I was like, I have a better credit rating. She gave me a better rate. They gave me a good rate. Finally, I went to the next bank and I took the same thing. I went to the next bank to get, I shopped around to get a competitive rate. And I had no intention of going to the first bank because I felt like they were discriminatory, to be honest, against me. And I finally found a bank where I could develop a relationship. And we talked about this in one of the episodes that one of the key people you want as a banker, right?
That's right.
So the banker, they understood. I was well prepared, and he was surprised because in dentistry, they actually, I guess the business is so airtight for them as far as like chances of failing. Well, prior to 2020, but that they typically they'll walk you through and help you make your business plan for you.
Oh, nice.
Everything. Like they're like, oh well, you have good credit. You just have to show that you've saved somewhere in the order of 10 to 50K, depending on how much you're asking, and are responsible. So, and they just look at, debt to equity, all that, but you're not putting anything down. They're really just going off the fact that you have a degree, which you should present to them. And you have all these other, things that shows that you're responsible. But I already had my business plan. I had everything ready to go. I was like, look, I made this in dental school. I was ready for this. Like, I got MBA in finance. I'm ready for this. And, so it was easy. They were like, really? Like,
so they gave you a business loan to start your business. Like what, was it just money in your account or what happened with that money?
So with us, since I was doing a startup, it's a build out. So it's kind of like if you're doing any construction product or if you're building a house or, people who do construction and build homes, the bank only disperses the money per phase as they approve it. And you have to send invoices to the bank every single step and everything I bought. So again, they're giving you 100% of the funding. They need to make sure you're buying and spending it on what they don't put it in your account at all, not even a penny. It goes directly to whoever is invoiced. They verify it, so that's how they mitigate to make sure you can't finesse
no fraud.
Because there's people who are going to finesse the system by just they can put this money in my account. I'm going to use it for this. I mean,
instead of building out or buying.
I know people who went to other banks and didn't have that, complete like checks and balances where. I don't know people. I know one person that I heard of. He used the funds and he said he was going to do A and ended up buying 2 smaller practices and then funding some other stuff. It ended up being a whole thing. I was like, I don't know you. But yeah, it's a little bit more structured with dentistry now. Before it was like maybe 1 or 2 banks and the rest didn't know how to make it work. But now they've all kind of got the plan the same.
So once you got that money for your build out, what else did they give you? I'm kind of pushing you because I know I know the history.
Equipment. They do all the equipment and stuff. You order the equipment.
There's another type of funding I'm looking for.
Well, yeah, of course. You get some line of credit.
That's right.
Line of credit.
All right, tell us a little bit about what a line of credit is.
So the line of credit is essentially you're going to get money in your account. It's like one big credit card. So as you draw from it each month, that is the amount that you owe. if you pay it back, like say you get $100K or $50K line of credit, that's about common for dental. They give you anywhere from $20 to $50K to start out, so you can run the business a day to day,
working
right?
capital,
working capital,
day to day
Correct.
expenses.
So when they do that, as you pay for expenses, marketing, whatever. And since we're in dentistry, we don't get paid by insurance from anywhere from 30 to 60 days. It's really helpful because if you pay everything straight out the cash, you can't pay payroll. Payroll, you know what I mean? Like you can't pay a lot of things. So as you pay that with a line of credit, when the income hits or the revenue hits your bank account, then you pay the line of credit. If you let it go on, you incur interest. But if you pay it off in that 30-day before the interest really hits, you have no interest.
Yeah.
So it's like a big credit card. If you have,
or watch out because some of them are accrued daily. The interest
some
is
of them are.
accrued
Yes.
daily.
Let me not.
So you will
misspeak.
still have some
Correct.
interest there.
But it's usually like it's lower than a credit card interest. So that is what you would prefer to use before you use a credit card. But yeah, it was just, I mean, again, they've given you a lot of money to do what you said you were going to do. They expect a report every month, detailed. Like I'm talking about your revenues, the patients you saw, the marketing budget. Like you're basically a CPA. So that's one thing that helps.
I kind of want to touch on the relationship aspect, right?
Yeah.
Because whether you are speaking to an institutional investor or you are speaking to a banker, I think the one aspect that people, don't take as serious is the relationship aspect, right? Because, so I'll give you a quick story. The guy who founded WeWork, you guys know WeWork, the co-sharing
They got a
space.
special on
This
streaming.
guy was a sweet talker.
Yeah.
Right?
Leverage
When I
everything.
say sweet talker, like talk about the best salesman that ever lived.
I need
Right?
some
Sweet
lessons.
amounts. Sweet amounts.
His business was not
what they
worth
say.
what he claimed.
Yeah.
But because he had a relationship with the right people, right? He was able to get the right funding that he needed to be able to take his business to the next level. So Tosin, I want to ask you a question, right? Can you kind of talk about how pivotal, because you've always saying that the best time to fund your business or to get money, to inject money into your business is when you don't need it.
Or the best time to get available credit
Yes.
or
When
you have
financing.
everything is
is
good.
when
When
so
everything is good, ask for more money.
Exactly. So I want to ask you, can you talk about, how pivotal relationship has been for you to be able to get the type of funding that you need for your business to continue to build?
I'm a little speechless because some people might say,
It's God, dude.
It's God, dude. Right. But it's definitely all about showing the right numbers. Right. Not many industries will be blessed like the dentist where they're asking for nothing down.
They ask for you. They're actually they're lending.
They want your blood.
They want your blood. They're
There's
lending.
something they're always looking for.
No, honestly, they will lend to you if you have the best credit profile, but primarily based on you.
Yeah.
If they feel like you're competent enough to could
get
be a
it done.
good credit profile and still be like, no. And anyway, I digress.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that most people, whenever you go to anyone, institutional investor, banking, even friends and family, you're going to have to make a case on why you want this money and how you
Are they going to get their money back?
How?
and how you intend to get it back.
And your
Right.
in your business plan, what is your business?
That's correct.
You have to be together.
So let's go back to that traditional banking route, whether it's SBA, traditional bank financing, whatever it is, right?
What's SBA?
SBA is Small Business Administration.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Through-
Yes, there's some loan programs.
Is that government?
Yes, it's through it's a government program that most banks have that they can. You may not fit all of the profile that the bank wants you to be able to do like a traditional financing, so they will qualify you under this special government program.
SBA is rigorous, isn't it?
It is rigorous,
bit more
and plus
rigorous.
it's also higher interest. So cost of money is also something that we may not even get to talk about here when it comes to financing your business. But really, what I was saying is that most times they're going to require 2 years of tax returns.
Yes.
On those 2 years of tax returns, you're going to have to show that you make money. Don't come to the bank asking them for a loan and you're negative everywhere.
Expensed everything.
You done wrote off everything.
You wrote off everything on the sun because somebody on Instagram told you that they never pay any taxes. Sure. Just don't go and ask for financing. All right. Because it's not about all of these different things that you may claim. It's because on paper, you don't make any
How much
money.
did you bring home?
So therefore, when they're looking at you and qualifying you, they're like, if you don't make anything, if we give you money, you ain't gonna pay back.
You're considered a high risk.
Yeah. Like, please come back when you make something.
Right.
All right. So that's number one. And then, like we mentioned, key is relationship, right? Where's that bank that knows you? Or that institutional investor that knows you. Those are going to be important to be able to get your financing.
Yeah.
But also, you can, maybe go somewhat of the traditional route, which is maybe let's use some credit cards. I am highly opposed to that because of I'm guessing
rate.
the interest rate that you're thinking of.
Yeah, you're
right.
right.
That
Unless
is
it's
not really
a
smart.
12-month or 18-month zero interest rate.
Yeah, you can
and
get some
think you're
promotion,
gonna
but be careful.
Yeah.
If you don't pay it back by that promotion ends, it hits you hard.
That 50K turned 100K in 2 days.
Yeah, like it was 50K, 0% yesterday. It's now 200
All
with
18 months of accrued
25%.
interest on the first
Correct.
day.
Yeah,
afterwards.
correct.
And we talked about, for those alternative fundings like line of credit or business loan or whether a program through SBA and how to position yourself, right? But when you think about positioning yourself for the startup world in terms of giving equity, especially at the beginning stage, it's all about narrative. I know for you, you talked about making sure that your business plan is good, right? You talked about making sure that your numbers, your tax return, everything looks good. But as a startup founder, that's not the case for us because we don't have those, right? So what do we have? We have our pitch deck and we have a narrative that we're selling. And I cannot stress this enough. It's not about the matrix. It's not about the traction. It's about the way you present the narrative.
It's not about the size of the market. Like if I just had 1.001%,
it's not about. It's not
That's
about
exactly
that.
what it is
It's
with
not about
dentistry.
that.
We're similar in that
People
aspect.
want to know, number one, can you execute? If they start asking about your background, they want to know, have you done something similar to this? That gives you the fortitude.
What makes you think you can do this?
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So that's number one. And then number two, because usually, when my investors, when they invested in me, they looked at it from a holistic perspective. Who's the team behind this thing? What is their background like? What do they do on a daily basis, which is quite important. So if you're somebody out there and you're interested in the equity funding aspect, like you got to assess yourself like, okay, am I the right person to ask for this money? Right. And if I'm not, because maybe there's a skill set that I'm lacking, can I find a co-founder that's able to complement my skill set so that we can boldly ask for that money? Right. And then number two, the narrative. Stories are so important. People buy feelings. They buy into how they're going to feel.
Yeah. That's a
right?
hard one.
And a lot of times, part of the narrative has to be, you're the one who is going to make this happen, right? The problem that we want to solve, right? This is the impact that we're going to make. And this is what we've done now. This is what we've been able to do now with the minimum viable product that we have. Right. So imagine what the cash that you're going to give us. Imagine us being able to inject that cash into the business, and this is what it's going to go into, right? So being able to set that narrative is quite important as well.
That's correct.
I think we're all on the same page as far as the numbers matter, but they're not investing in just the numbers. They're investing in you.
Yeah.
They're investing in whose vision, like
well,
Thompson always says
if you're not a bank, because bankers don't care about you. They care about the numbers.
Well, yes, they do. But at the same time, they still, when you're asking for a lot of money, they still need to know, okay, the numbers make sense, but can you do
execute?
it? Can you execute it?
Yeah.
And like you said, are you buying into the vision? They have to buy into you.
Yeah.
If they don't buy into you, it doesn't matter if you're perfect.
Yeah.
The only reason they bought into me was because I was like, look, this is what I can do. This is what I've done.
Yeah.
This is what I plan to do later on with your money.
Yeah.
And I'm going to come up, like this is, Anybody who does you give money to your aunt, uncle, or cousins or family member, you want to know what is money for? What you need this money for? You know, you don't just give them money just cause. So
you guys watch Shark Tank, right?
Yes,
exactly.
What's the one question they always ask? Tell me about your background.
Yes.
Why would you think
no, they also ask, do you know your number? Because that's the one I always use,
and
right?
the customers. You know your customer base.
But before the number, they want to know like who's the person behind this, right?
Yeah. That is what they start with. We're going to
get to the numbers like, what's your background?
Yeah.
Because there's no way I'm going to say that I studied psychology, but I'm building a business that requires some heavy set engineering. Like it doesn't work. Or
I read a book.
Something with science.
You
get what I'm saying? Like, you have to have some sort of
I read a book, but
background.
I did have somebody who's an expert in this look over it. So you got to at least have something.
Exactly. Well, since we talked about the different avenues of how to get funded, right? But for folks out there, because we want this to be as practical as possible, if you had to advise folks out there looking for funding for their business, how should they be positioning themselves?
I would say start small.
Okay.
Right. Unfortunately, there are some high risk industries. So even if you have a great idea, let's call it like restaurants. Hotels, hotels and motels, those are usually the three that, we have a hard time finding funding for, or a really expensive funding for. I mean, because they think they're high risk, right? Or they are high risk.
No, it's not think that historically restaurants is the highest afford.
Statistically, historically.
And then hotels and motels, it's very hard because it's going to be a large purchase, also high risk. So I would say start small. Vet your idea first.
MVP. Always the MVP first.
Try and bootstrap it as much as possible, hopefully without credit card debt. All right. If you need to, hustle to be able to save up to be able to get your MVP done, I would say do that.
I'm of the opposite mindset.
How should somebody position themselves?
I think that I don't think you should use as much as your own money. I think you should always use OPM, and that's something that other people's money. Because most of your wealthy people in this nation and across the world made money because they didn't use their own money. It was other people's money, whether it's friends or whatever.
I agree with that, but this is if someone is starting from scratch,
right?
We did talk about like in a previous episode where you said that you would buy an asset, buy a business.
Yeah,
that's an easy sell for a bank.
Yeah,
because they've got the
history. They've got the track record.
But if you're a startup,
that is actually how I got started.
Right.
I started off, working part-time and then hustling. Well, no, working full-time and hustling part-time.
Right.
Right. But then when I jumped out to entrepreneurship full-time, I bought a business. Right. And, we went the SBA route, like we mentioned. That's how I got my first footing into full-time.
Would you do it that way again?
I would do it again.
Exactly.
I would definitely buy. Right. However, if you want to bootstrap it, I wouldn't say get a loan to test an idea.
To test.
If I'm buying,
is different.
Okay, that's what I was trying to say. Don't get a loan.
Yeah, no, that's
an idea.
Nah, you don't need to
test.
test.
The question is, how can you position yourself to be funded?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. But now, if you want to go out and, if you've got an asset like a business that you want to buy, like they say out there, there's this silver tsunami of, business owners that don't have some kind of succession plan. There are opportunities out there.
There are.
But, like one of my people says, measure thrice, cut once. Right? Because not every business
nowadays
is
you gotta
awesome
measure
out there.
8 times.
Yeah, now maybe you measure 8 times, right?
Make sure check the measuring tape, bro.
But those are the 2 ways I would probably position myself. Just quick recap. If I'm testing something, I want it to be on my own dime. It's not going to be on the loan.
I agree.
If it doesn't turn out
not
well,
stuck on the hook.
You're gonna And then if I wanted to really jump out there, I'd probably look at a business to acquire so that I can, just supercharge what's being done and put my all into something that's already existing.
Right.
Not saying it's easy to find one, but those are my 2 options there.
What about you? How should I guess maybe somebody trying to get into dental or just in general, how should they position themselves to be funded?
It's the same. Same thing. You have to, have mentally what you want your business to look like. Get all your taxes together. I have friends who, they want to get a business going. And at the very end, they're like, oh, I got to get my taxes together. I'm like, isn't that with everything that you have to do? I need to get my financials together. So just be financially ready. Make sure your credit's pretty good. Try to keep it at 700 or above.
Yes.
And, don't have a whole bunch of loans and they'll forgive student loans. Student loans, they don't care about. They care about, do you own like a mortgage and some other stuff? Because everyone's got student loans, So that's not a big thing for our industry, but kind of figure out which type of dental office you want to have, shadow that. And so you just have to sound like you know what you're doing and have your finances together. And then that's just logic, right?
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to throw in that you talked about is really your credit score.
Yep.
Right? Because every loan for a business, don't let them lie to you out there saying my business can get a loan and whatever. No, your business can't.
Get it fixed.
All right. There's a difference between a trade line and an actual business loan. A trade line is like I go to Home Depot, they give me like a Home Depot credit card. I can't use it anywhere but Home Depot.
Yeah.
That's a trade line. Those are a little bit easier to get.
Yeah.
And that's what most people tell you out there when they talk about business credit.
Right.
But real business loans, you are going to personally guarantee that loan.
Yeah.
So like Alan was saying, they're actually looking at you. Yes, they gave him money 100%, no, zero down, whatever, but they're actually looking at him. He's on the hook. If the business doesn't pay, they know him as a dentist. They will force him to go out there and work and he can make enough money and pay back the loan. All right,
and they'll take up the assets and be like, all right, go get another job and give us your paycheck.
It's very important that you make sure that your personal credit is good to go because you will be guaranteeing most or if not all of the loans unless you have some kind of free and clear asset that can be collateralized on this loan.
The only way you can get around that is if you have an existing business that you can use that
as a collateral.
Revenues as a collateral.
You guys have heard it here. If you want to raise money or you want your business to be funded, there are many routes that you can go. You can go the equity route, which is you get a safe, or you can go the traditional route, which is get a line of credit, or you can get a business loan. You can use your credit card, or you can use your own money.
Don't use your credit card.
But regardless, whichever way you decide to go, make sure to think about how you can position yourself so that you can go in the route which you desire. Thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Yes,
if
sir.
you could do me a quick favor, what routes have you gone through to get your business funded? If you guys can drop that in the comment section.
Or if you're considering one, which one would you like to consider?
Yeah, which one would you like to consider? Drop it in the comment section. I'll be checking. Appreciate you guys. Once again, you can find me on Instagram at OneCarizing. What can they find you, Alan?
I am ADDS.
Tosin?
Tosin Amatayo. And you can also find us on BTG.
Your BTG.
BTG.
Appreciate you guys. Until
Like,
next time.
subscribe.
Peace.
Peace.